Hello, welcome back with another story. I've been married to my wife Jilly for 11 years. Before tying the knot, we spent over 7 years dating, building a strong and understanding relationship. We were more than just partners. We were best friends who shared everything. Our bond was so tight that even before we became a couple, we were college buddies. Everything was smooth sailing in our lives until Jilly's new boss, John, entered the scene. In the first week of his arrival, Jilly couldn't stop talking about him. She praised him endlessly, emphasizing his kindness and supportiveness and how he uplifted every employee. Initially, I listened with enthusiasm, but as time passed, her constant chatter about him started to bother me. It wasn't just the praise, it was the fact that she seemed more interested in him than in our conversations. Gradually, Jilly's behaviour towards me changed. She became distant and cold, withdrawing emotionally. Although subtle, I noticed the shift in her attitude towards me. She stopped asking about my day and seemed preoccupied with the thoughts of her boss. At the time, I brushed it off, assuming it was a temporary phase. However, looking back, I realise I should have paid more attention to these early signs. The situation escalated when Jilly began coming home late from work more frequently. While her job in finance often required late hours during busy cycles, this felt different. She also started socializing more with her work friends, which wasn't out of the ordinary since we both enjoyed spending time with colleagues. However, her increased absences and neglect towards me became apparent. Our once vibrant sex life dwindled to non-existence, adding to the growing sense that something was wrong. Despite my concerns, I hesitated to suspect her of cheating, believing it was unfounded. I confided in close friends about my worries, but they reassured me, attributing it to normal ups and downs in a relationship. Determined to reignite the spark in our marriage, I decided to surprise Jilly by recreating a special memory from our past. With our graduation anniversary approaching, I planned a romantic evening reminiscent of the night we first had sex. I cooked her favourite hamburgers, baked an apple pie, and adorned the living room with her preferred decorations and dim lighting. When Jilly arrived home, she was delighted by the surprise and showered me with affection. However, her excitement quickly turned to disappointment when she revealed she had to attend a work event. Despite my efforts, she left abruptly, leaving me feeling rejected and alone. It was a painful realization that our connection was slipping away and something needed to change. As I set the scene for a romantic evening to reconnect with Jilly, I poured my heart and soul into recreating the ambience of our cherished memories. I meticulously prepared her favourite meal, crafting juicy hamburgers and baking an apple pie to perfection. The air was filled with the tantalising aroma of home-cooked delights as I adorned our living room with soft, dim lighting, reminiscent of the intimate moments we shared in the past. When Jilly finally arrived home, her initial reaction seemed promising. She appeared genuinely delighted by the effort I had put into creating such a heartfelt surprise. Her eyes sparkled with appreciation, and she enveloped me in a warm embrace, showering me with kisses. Yet, as the minutes passed, a subtle shift in her demeanour caught my attention. Her radiant smile began to falter, replaced by a troubled expression, akin to that of a lost puppy seeking solace. Curiosity piqued. I couldn't help but inquire about the sudden change in her demeanour. With a heavy sigh, she confessed that her unexpected return home was prompted by a work-related obligation, a farewell party hosted by her colleagues in honour of a departing senior manager. Despite my disappointment, I masked my feelings, opting not to create a scene. After all, her explanation seemed plausible, and I reassured myself that she would return promptly after the event. As the hours stretched on, my initial patience gradually waned, replaced by a gnawing sense of unease. What was meant to be a brief absence stretched into a prolonged wait that tested my resolve. Midnight approached, then passed, Yet there was no sign of Jilly's return. Each passing minute felt like an eternity, filled with silent anticipation and mounting anxiety. In a bid to maintain my dignity, I resisted the urge to reach out to her, unwilling to betray my own self-respect. Despite the ache in my heart and the questions swirling in my mind, I forced myself to wait, clinging to the hope that she would honor her promise and return to me before the dawn broke. With time, exhaustion weighed heavily upon me, both physically and emotionally. Frustration simmered beneath the surface as the minutes ticked by relentlessly. Finally, at the stroke of 2 a.m., I conceded defeat, surrendering to the weariness that engulfed me. With a heavy heart and a sense of defeat, I extinguished the flickering lights, stored away the remnants of our failed celebration, and retreated to the solace of sleep, hoping to escape the turmoil of my thoughts, if only for a fleeting moment, as the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains, heralding the arrival of a new day. I awoke to find Jilly slipping silently into our bed. Her movements were cautious, as if she feared disturbing the fragile peace that enveloped our shared space. Pretending to remain asleep, I listened intently, my senses attuned to the sound of her breath, the gentle rustle of the sheets, a silent witness to the fractured bond between us. When she finally stirred from her slumber, I couldn't help but confront her about the events of the previous night. Her response was casual, devoid of remorse or accountability, as she claimed to have returned home in the early hours of the morning. Yet her words rang hollow, a stark contrast to the truth that lingered in the silence between us. Her attempt to deflect my inquiries with dismissive remarks only fueled my determination to uncover the reality of her actions. With a heavy heart and a sense of betrayal gnawing at my soul, I resolved to delve deeper, seeking the truth hidden beneath the facade of deceit and deception. After sending the text about my supposed work trip, I waited with a mixture of anticipation and dread for the inevitable fallout. Jilly's simple okay response felt like a punch to the gut, signaling her detachment from our relationship. With a heavy heart, I steeled myself for the impending end of our marriage. During those agonizing 15 days, my emotions ran the gamut from anger to sorrow to numbness. Despite having gathered enough evidence of Jilly's betrayal, I found myself compelled to continue tracking her movements, perhaps in a desperate attempt to validate my decision or simply to confirm what I already knew deep down. When the tracking device abruptly ceased transmitting data, it felt like a cruel twist of fate, as if the universe was conspiring to thwart my efforts to uncover the truth. Jilly's accusatory text only added insult to injury, fueling my frustration and resentment toward her and the entire situation. As I blocked her from all communication channels, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that gnawed at my insides. The woman I had loved and trusted implicitly had shattered my world with her infidelity, leaving me adrift in a sea of uncertainty and heartache. Despite my resolve to maintain distance, Jilly's relentless barrage of messages tested my resolve. Each apology, each plea for forgiveness, reopened wounds I thought had begun to heal, reminding me of the shattered dreams and broken promises that now defined our relationship. When she demanded a final meeting before signing the divorce papers, I reluctantly agreed, steeling myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. Seeing her arrive with swollen eyes and a defeated demeanor only served to reinforce the magnitude of the pain she had inflicted upon us both. As she poured out her heart in a torrent of apologies and self-recrimination, I remained silent, grappling with a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Her tearful confession laid bare the depth of her betrayal and the complexity of the web of lies she had woven around us. In that moment, as she attempted to shift blame onto her boss, I realized that our marriage was irreparably broken. Despite the lingering echoes of love and longing that still whispered in the depths of my heart, I knew that there could be no reconciliation, no forgiveness for the wound she had inflicted upon me. And so, as I watched her crumble before me, I made the painful decision to let go, to release her from the bonds that had once held us together. With a heavy heart and tear-streaked cheeks, I whispered my final goodbye, knowing that it was time to close the chapter on our shared history and begin the painful process of healing and moving forward alone. As Jilly broke down, her tears mingling with self-directed curses, I found myself momentarily swayed by the sight of her anguish. Despite the pain she had caused, her raw display of remorse tugged at my heartstrings. Yet, amidst the turmoil of conflicting emotions, I remained resolute in my decision to end our marriage. As I rose to leave, she grasped my hand, her desperate plea hanging heavy in the air. The faint glimmer of hope in her eyes threatened to unravel my resolve, but I knew that succumbing to it would only prolong the agony for both of us. With a heavy heart, I gently extricated myself from her grasp and uttered the painful truth. There was no chance of reconciliation. In the days that followed, Jilly's actions spoke volumes. She swiftly sent the signed divorce papers and the key to our house to my lawyer, a tangible acknowledgement of the finality of our relationship. Her heartfelt email, bidding me farewell, pierced through the veil of my defences, stirring a torrent of emotions within me. Despite the betrayal, the hurt, and the shattered dreams, the love I had once felt for Jilly still lingered, a bittersweet reminder of what once was. The prospect of a life without her loomed ominously on the horizon, a daunting reality I was forced to confront. As the divorce proceedings marched forward, I grappled with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Would I ever be able to move on from Jilly, or would her memory continue to haunt me, a ghost of what once was? The path ahead was fraught with obstacles and heartache, yet I knew that it was a journey I had to undertake, for my own sake and for the sake of the future that awaited me. In the face of adversity, I found solace in the unwavering support of those around me, their encouragement serving as a beacon of hope in the darkness. With each passing day, I inched closer to closure, slowly piecing together the fragments of my shattered heart and forging a new path forward. Though the road ahead was uncertain, I took comfort in the knowledge that I was not alone, that there were others who stood beside me, ready to lend a helping hand or a sympathetic ear. And so, with a heavy heart and a steely resolve, I braced myself for the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that whatever the future held, I would face it head-on, armed with the strength of those who believed in me.